Hey everybody, welcome back to ShareTreck, and we're doing our weekly discussion segment between Raj and I. And I'd like to take it in a wee bit of a different direction and ask Raj some questions that have been really on my mind, really burning questions. So, Raj, if you may, I'd like to ask you a few thought-provoking topics. First of all, Raj, from a millennial, from a younger person, what do you think is some of the biggest concerns, biggest issues facing my generation for someone from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Sandeep. And I think we have talked about this in the past as well on a passing basis, just touching on the topic. But this is good. I think we could actually talk about this for this whole session because it's a very rich topic. And I guess many of our viewers who are your age group and below, as well as some slightly younger than me and with a lot of life ahead, they are all going to be concerned about this. I think the biggest threat, even though it seems like the election right now and the geopolitical threat and all that stuff, I think we'll be able to survive all those things. The biggest threat that, in my opinion, faces your generation, Sandeep, is all the thing that my generation and my parents' generation did to this planet. I'm talking about the environment.
Hmm.
So I think environment is the biggest challenge, and I'll explain to you why. Because as you know, I'm a real estate agent, right? So I operate in Toronto, and in Toronto we don't have that much of weather crisis because we are very cold, and then we have decent summers. We don't face hurricanes, and we don't face what you call a cyclones and all that stuff. It depends on which side it rotates. Just for information, if hurricane is actually a cyclone, but it rotates in the other side, and a cyclone is actually a hurricane, but it rotates the other way. So one happens in the southern hemisphere, one in the northern. I don't know which one is which, but just coming back to our topic. Now, all these extreme weather events happen mainly because we have disturbed the balance of the environment. And right now, we may not realize that because we are living in nicely paved part of the world where everything is clean. You enter into a building, the lobby is clean, everything is nice, and the temperature is all controlled. So we think that we are at the pinnacle of human existence and everything is great. But do you know that thousands of species of insects and life forms on Earth are dying every day? They are just getting eradicated because the Earth is no longer able to provide them the environment in which they can live. And when some of those species go away, the other species who depended on eating them and surviving then find that they are starved, and then they also go away. So slowly and steadily, they're all going away. Even in large animals, right? We have seen excessive poaching and excessive deforestation has led to the shrinking of species of animals, and many animals are becoming rare and protected, and they are now living in sanctuaries. So we had that Counting Crows song, which said they put a parking lot and they put all the trees into a museum and they charge people $1 to see them. Now that song really makes sense because what we have done is we have paved the paradise, and we have taken all the natural elements because they're all going extinct and put them into enclosed places where we have to pay money to go and watch rare species and rare things. So things are getting bad now. Why is it such a big issue? Because if we, let us say, for example, autocratic regimes happen everywhere, that's not going to be a problem because people to people will all get adjusted to the new norm, and we'll live our lives and we'll pass away. Next generation will come, so on. That's not going to be as catastrophic. Whereas when you look at the climate change that is happening right now, we are almost in the tipping point where we won't be able to reverse it anymore. So once that is gone, then we are looking at a planet that is going to look really alien to us because we'll be short of water. And the places that used to be able to produce agriculture will become deserts. And the places which were cold, like Canada and others, they are going to become agricultural land. We won't have the snow that we used to see before. And when this happens, we can all say, okay, I'm living in Canada. I'm not going to have any problem. I'm happy out here. Things are not going to be that simple because all of humanity from places which are getting environmentally ravaged, they're all going to become climate refugees, and they're all going to come knocking at your door. And you can't say no. And if you did say no, there's going to be a whole lot of other problems you will have. So that's one of the issues that you can look forward to. The other thing is we have a supply chain that goes across the world. This supply chain also includes food. So the bread that you're eating is probably coming from different parts of the world. The wheat that has been used in making that bread must be coming from different parts of the world and all getting converted into flour and mixed up and then manufactured locally. And the biscuits that you're eating, they must be coming from raw material sourced from different part of the world. Oil that you use for cooking. So just look at food itself. There are so many parts of your diet that are going to be restricted because you may not have the variety that you have right now. Slowly it will start shrinking and it will be replaced with artificial. And that's the last leg. Once we do artificial, after that, we are just going to be eating chemicals and formulating artificial food and all that stuff. So we need to stop those things. That, I think, Sandeep, is going to be the biggest problem. Our generation could afford to have children and provide them a playground in which they could play, provide them with toys and other things, and a life which involved interacting with nature, like a dip in the swimming pool or going into the lake and things like that. I think the future generations may not have that privilege because it will be difficult for you to fill up a swimming pool. It's going to be mighty expensive to have disposable water because everybody wants water for agriculture and to drink and to have a shower. They won't have that much of water. A swimming pool will become super luxury, and anyone who tries to fill up a swimming pool will be actively attacked by everyone in society because they would say we'd rather have that water for consumption. So these are
Yes.
the problems that will happen, Sandeep. And closer to home, I'll give the example of Florida. In
Mm.
Florida, I hear that insurance companies have refused to insure a whole bunch of homes, either because they are in flood plains, which gets flooded regularly, or because they are in zones where there is a lot of extreme weather activity, so the roofs are not being insured. Because insurance companies are in a game where they would like to insure 10 people, collect their premiums, and they are expecting that once in 3 or 4 years, one of them might have a problem where we'll have to pay up, and still we have got plenty of money from the premiums. So when they start to find that 5 out of 10 are asking for claims every year, there is no more profit in that business. So they stop insuring. And if you legislate to force them to insure, right, then the premiums are going to be extra high. So all said and done, if we ignore climate change at this point of time, then we will have to pay in terms of higher costs, and many of our standard of living items will go out of our reach, something that we take for granted right now. They will all go out of reach. Just imagine if because of climate related issues you have to switch off lights in every room except the room in which you are at any point of time. If we come to that kind of a situation because there is not enough hydropower, and the environment has got so polluted that you cannot use oil and gas to create electricity the way we do right now, and then it's going to be a problem, right? And nuclear technology, we are controlling nuclear technology, so we can't give it to every other country. There are a limited number of countries which have got nuclear reactors which can provide electricity. So how much more can you strain that? So that, I think, is the problem, Sandeep, for your generation. That's the biggest risk.
It's a very powerful response
Bleak,
there, Raj.
bleak.
Yeah, very
Sorry.
powerful, bleak response. That image of going to a museum and saying, "Here is what a tree, a park used to look like."
Yeah.
Just that's not a reality. That just sounds so grim, dark, and unfortunate.
Yeah. Some people might accuse me of having a nihilistic approach that you're looking at all the negative, but I'm not seeing anything that is being done to avert the climate change.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I remember just a short while ago seeing a article on CNBC titled, maybe we could put in the description,
Yeah.
titled "How the Climate Crisis Will Affect the U.S. Economy." The top economists, these are economists, Jeffrey Sachs, Nouriel Rubini, and Mark Zandi discuss. And in this video, the fellow Rubini, he says that there isn't really a plan, and people aren't taking this very seriously at all. And we could say transition to green technology. These are very costly transitions, and whether we make the plan beforehand and then act, that'll that's huge, and it doesn't seem like anyone is focusing on that.
Yeah.
Raj, if I could just do a follow-up question,
Yeah.
what can we do in terms of us, the consumer, everybody? Can we invest in solar? Can we invest in wind? I know we're kind of stock focused. Can we invest in these things? How can we create a situation where not destroying our oceans and our fisheries? And I love
Yeah.
animals. I don't want to see those animals harmed. What do you think?
Yeah, I think even from a point of view of self-preservation of our species, right? Right now, we are the apex species in this planet. We are at the top of the food chain. So it is our responsibility to be custodians of the planet and restore some balance and protect the vulnerable species
Yes.
that are depending on natural sources and they're living in the wild, and also leave something for the next generation of humans, right? So let me break down this problem into two or three levels of what can be done. I think first of all, education is very, very important. You have to pay a premium for education, and in education, the component of social responsibility, the component of civics has got to be emphasized so that people can understand. And the other thing we have to do is teach children about environment. Science should be the main component of education so that people can understand how everything is interrelated, and what you think is an isolated element of the environment is not probably isolated. It's part of a delicate balance somewhere, and something else can break. That is one part. The second part is that our leaders are not looking forward to actually serving the people. We have democracy, which is really great. Democracy means rule of the people, for the people, by the people. So we have that in name only, in my opinion, because if our feelings were taken care of, then it would reflect in government policies, and we won't be having this discussion about environment being a risk. But we have that as a risk because we have a government which is elected by special interests who are lobbying, who are paying money to the representatives so that they can get elected. And when they get elected, they are beholden to these interests. And these interests could be in the oil sector, they could be in the energy sector, they could be in the mining sector, uh, you name it. They could be in various different sectors, and they're all using natural resources in order to produce goods and services and deliver it to you. And as far as the CEOs of these companies are concerned, their remuneration is more stock based. So if the stock does well, they make good money. And in order for the stock to be valued, they have to generate a lot of profits. So, what is the easiest way of making profits for them? One is to have as less employees as possible, get them to do as much as possible, and pay them as less as possible. And once you have scraped the bottom of that barrel, then the next thing that you do is you start looking at not having regulations. If the regulation is forcing you, for example, you're a gold mine, and one of the process of refining gold involves cyanide. So as long as you're refining the gold and being able to sell it, you're interested in the mine. But once the mine capacity is over, most of the gold mines, they just walk away, and the whole place is toxic. So many governments end up using taxpayer dollars to go and remediate the place. And so we are paying for that. And at the end of the day, if these corporations can just move around like locusts from one place to another and take advantage of taxes, they go tax shopping, put domicile where they are tax beneficial, and they really don't seem to have a stake. That's a very myopic vision. Myopic means a very short-sighted vision where you see only things close by but not further away. They're not looking further beyond. That happened with outsourcing. When CEOs discovered outsourcing, that you could have cheap labor in China and India, and you can sell it at the local price and make a lot of money. They just started outsourcing, not thinking that down the line, our local employees are not going to be having jobs. They won't be having the purchase power to pay the kind of price we want for the goods. But fortunately for them, because of the outsourcing, the cost of production fell down. So the cost of sales also came down. But right now, they don't have the kind of affluent consumer that they used to have before. The consumers are now used to low cost, and that low cost cannot be given unless they go to economy where there is less regulation on the environment, there is less labor regulations where you can exploit labor, have child labor, all those things, as long as it is not prominent, right? You have had footwear companies and all where it was discovered that child labor was being used, there was a backlash, and then they shut it down. So you don't want to look at the work environment in those countries where these big brand goods are produced. You just look at the snazzy showroom where supermodels come and display those things, or a celebrity displays it, and you go and buy that sneaker, or you go and buy that product or that garment. You don't look at what's happening below. You don't want to see. And at the same time, the less developed countries which are producing these cheap goods are the place where these guys point and say, you know what, those guys are polluting. And why are they polluting? Because they are producing for the whole world. If you blame China for pollution, you look at anything in your house, even if this mic, Shure mic, which I have got in front of me, if I go and look at it, it would have been made in China or Indonesia or Vietnam or somewhere like that. Then I have these speakers here on my table. These are my desktop speakers. Okay, I'm going to show you. Now, if I look at where it was made, I bet this is Creative Speakers, and they are made in China. Okay, so when we get all those things made in those countries, why are we doing that? We are doing that because the CEO wants to maximize the profit. And why is the CEO wanting to maximize profit? Because his remuneration depends on that. And also shareholders are asking for more profits. If you look at our behavior as shareholders, right?
Yes.
So we are looking for profits. So let us say the EPS is $2.10 this year, right? Next year, we want an EPS of $2.25. The year after that, we want $3, and so on. We are constantly wanting more and more EPS, right? So how is the company going to do that? So somewhere they have to start automating. If they start automating, what's going to happen is people are going to lose jobs.
Right.
And when people lose jobs, who is going to pay them, right? And at this point of time, the companies have legislated sufficiently that companies pay very less tax, even less tax than you and I, even though they make billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And their CEOs make billions of dollars, and they get remunerated in stock options, and they borrow against it so that they don't have to pay taxes.
I remember NVIDIA read somewhere that it pays less than 5% tax.
Yeah. There are some companies which pay zero tax.
Yeah.
Okay. And their CEOs make a lot of money, but they just borrow against it instead of taking instead of selling the stock and taking the money. And when the CEO starts selling stock and taking money, like Elon Musk did when he wanted to buy Twitter, they have a huge tax bill. So they have to sell more shares. And when they do that, the share price falls.
Right.
Even at that time, we are the ones who lose. So what can we do? That was your question. So coming to the solutions. One is we need to make sure that school system is strengthened. In a country or economy where the school teacher is paid less than an average worker, I think that's total injustice. The school teachers are the ones who create the students who will be the architects of the future. They are going to be the future doctors, engineers, CEOs, and everything.
Right.
And the school teacher has to do a good job to give good value system to these children, to educate them so that they are not, so that they are scientific in their bent of mind. They have a backbone or a moral code and a sense of ethics, a sense of social responsibility. And if we are asking so much from the teacher, we have to pay them like we pay the CEOs. People should want to become teachers. People should take pride in the fact that they are creating the next CEO, the next president, the next astronaut, the next celebrity. So they need to have that sense of pride. Today, the school teacher is the least paid. So how are you going to expect the school teacher to do? And if you are to look at the United States, okay, in Canada, we have a much better situation, but in the United States, the school teachers are now under further pressure as to what they can say, what they cannot say, what book they can read, what book they cannot read. And they have this pressure about treating different types of students in different manner because of their sexual identity or whatever. So it's making the job of the teacher very, very difficult. Not only are they not paid enough for all the hard work and noble work they do, they are being put into extra pressure that if they make a wrong step, they may have a lot of social problems and they may even lose their jobs. So what good person will come into education, right? So we have to sort that out first. We have to elevate the level of teachers to be much higher and more prestigious in the society than it is right now. So that is point number one. Point number two is that we have to make sure that education doesn't get tainted by any political ideology or religious ideology, because politics and religion have no place in a school. School should be purely the teaching of what is physics, what is chemistry, what is biology, what is mathematics, what is the terms of engagement for a healthy society, how do you play your part in it. Those are the things I think that should come into a school curriculum. And then we go to the next level of education, which is in the college, which is where our CEOs and others come out. Now, if you look at Harvard and Stanford, these are all big universities with a very big appeal. They are prestigious institution. But of late, you have seen graduates from Harvard and Stanford all doing despicable things in the social sphere. For example, if you look at Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz, these are all people who are highly educated, and they could take a leadership in environmental reform. They could take a leadership in making sure that our students are getting good education and becoming good citizens for the future. But I don't see them doing that. We have highly educated people in the government, but they are not doing what needs to be done. They are not proactively legislating for genomics. They are not proactively legislating for environment. They are not proactively legislating for artificial intelligence and the related outcomes that will come up. So what are they doing then there, right? They are either on Twitter or social media or on TV station talking about conspiracies and other things. So the reason I'm focusing on US is because it's an example for the world. It's the last superpower in the world. What happens in US is an example for rest of the world to follow. So if US is not going to give an example, right, it's going to be that the rest of the world is also going to be dysfunctional. So first, those things have to happen. So I would say that in universities like Stanford and Harvard and all, I guess they have to put a heavy dose of corporate social responsibility, whether they are producing lawyers or CEOs or businessmen or whatever. They have to produce them with corporate social responsibility and a deep sense of stewardship of the environment, so that when they come into positions of power, which they will, then they are lobbying for the good of humanity. They are thinking and proactively pushing the government for the good of humanity, and they restore a sense of balance. And the third thing is tax policy. Our tax policy is skewed towards the top 1% to top 5%. And we are looking still at trickle-down economics, which makes the rest of the world poor. And the middle class is being hollowed out. And it's the middle class, which is the only part of the population which is law-abiding, God-fearing, and which tries to live a life which stays away from violating the law, following the law, paying the fines, paying the taxes, and doing all the right things and expecting the right outcome. But if this tax inequality continues, we're going to lose the middle class. And once we lose the middle class, then you won't have a proper functioning government. People have a sense of despair. And that's where you have autocrats taking over. They show a promise of something, they take over, and then your freedoms and everything goes for a toss. So all those things get encompassed with that education. So college level and postgraduate level, they need to teach corporate social responsibility. And what can we do as investors? For us, you asked the questions, Raj, should we invest in solar? Should we invest in clean energy and all that? So I'm thinking that it's a good thing to invest in solar and clean energy. Of course, that will help to develop that sector. But we are still going to face problem with the government. If the government has an active policy of not encouraging and in fact penalizing solar and clean energy in favor of fossil fuels, then all our investment is just going to go for waste. So I'm not saying don't invest in it. I'm saying that probably we can take more active part in our annual general meetings by voting. When we have the ballot that comes in, we can vote in it. We can also go a step further. We can form groups of investors and start putting agenda items for the annual general meeting, where the agenda talks about do we have a program in our company for being environmentally responsible? Do we have a program in our company for making sure that the wages are equitable for various levels of management? Do we have some way of making sure that our company pays its fair share of taxes to the government and makes sure that it lobbies for the right things. So those things can all come from us as investors. And still, you will have the hedge funds and private equity, which will have a different agenda altogether. We may not be able to overcome it totally, but that is something we can do, because just investing in clean energy and solar is not going to solve the problem. And finally, I would say I'll go one step further. As consumers, what we could do is we could reduce our carbon footprint,
Hmm.
and we could start buying stuff which we think is more environmentally friendly. And then the companies will take the cue, because if they find that gas guzzling car doesn't sell, then they themselves will start improving the mileage and give you better cars. So we can influence the companies by changing our behavior and demanding things that they will then need to produce.
Yeah.
So Sandeep, I took too much of time. Sorry about
So
that, but it's a
no, no,
passionate.
no, it was good. So, Raj, if I understand the question of, can we just invest in companies that do wind, do solar, do clean energy? You're saying that the system is kind of put in a way where we focus on having good cash position, having good margins, having revenue coming in, and the market pushes companies to doing some of those unethical practices, like going into countries where there's exploitive
Yeah.
working conditions. And because of that, because the stock market is saying, okay, if you don't do this, your stock will go down. That isn't the best way of going about.
That
Um,
is true.
yeah, and also the article we were talking about, one of the economists spoke and said that he only really sees anything happen when tax credits are involved, and there's way too much confusion and not enough guidance in terms of this.
Yeah, who is going to
Everything really
guide?
ends.
Who
Yeah,
is going to guide, right?
yeah,
Because they won't listen to investors unless we
yeah,
are organized.
yeah.
And who is going to organize investors? We are all confused, right? In this channel, I'm talking to all our audience who are all investors. We have around 10,000 plus. Can we make a change? No. Can we try? Yes, we can try. We can probably start making videos like this on a regular basis to coalesce all opinions and build opinions among our viewers, so that they can start thinking in those lines. But there is no guidance from the government, right? If the US government decided that they are going to follow this kind of a approach and a philosophy, then they can influence European Union. European Union is doing a lot. It's doing a lot more than anybody else.
Really?
And then jointly, EU and US can influence the UN to take it across the place. They can influence the G7 and then the G20, and then it can percolate down. But when there is no one to set an example, right, then there is utter confusion. Because let us say if countries like India and China decide that they're going to stop the use of fossil fuel and they're going to work hard, put up all solar panels, wind energy, and try to manufacture, they won't be cost effective as compared to the others who are using fossil fuels, for which there are a lot of equipment and tools and everything available, factory and infrastructure available. So they are going to lose, and they are answerable to their population. Like India has 1/5 of population of the world, China has 1/5 of population of the world. How can you deprive them from what the rest of the world enjoys? They also aspire to better quality of life. So the thing is, as long as people are afraid that if they don't hustle, they're going to be left behind, we are going to have this problem, because people are going to hustle to get ahead. And in the process, they're going to break all norms, they're going to break regulation, they're going to break environmental norms, everything, just to make that extra dollar and stay ahead. And there'll be no leadership and there'll be confusion.
Hmm.
That's what is happening right now.
I remember there is somebody I follow from time to time named Forrest Glant. This fellow, he's got a podcast almost where he just talks about nature and talks about the environment. And one of them, I remember he was asked by a viewer, "Hey, Forrest, what can we do to make a difference in the environment? What can we do?" And he like took a moment, he thought about it and said, the simplest, best, probably most effective thing you could do, rather than sometimes donating to a charity which you don't know where the money goes, or trying to
Yes.
influence politicians who sometimes they don't even listen. He says the best, simplest thing you could do on the lowest level is grab your friends, grab your family, Go out there, go out for a walk, go into nature and show them the beauty of nature. And they will start caring when they see it, when they see the wildlife, all the trees, everything. When they see that, then people start caring. And when more and more of these people do that, they start caring, we could actually do something because we're a collective now.
Yeah.
Rather than like, all right, I threw money at this problem, I'm fine. My moral conscience is all right. That
Yeah,
was
and we can do a few more things. Like I'm talking about North
yeah,
America, like Canada. We can do a few more things, right? In our backyard, we have trees and we have
yes,
to rake the leaves, we have to rake the needles.
yeah,
The normal tendency is to try and cut the tree when possible, right? People are deforesting. I would say that let the trees be. They have been here before us. Let them be there. Raking the leaves is going to be just extra exercise. The last 3 days, I've been raking needles and leaves from my backyard, cleaning up
for you.
my backyard. So it's a good exercise for you, and
Uh,
that happens. And also when you're going to trails and all, right? You
yeah,
can always, help plants and trees. So I have a walking trail
yeah.
in the university area. We have the University of Toronto next to our house, and there's beautiful walking ravines out there. So it's fully forested. So from time to time, we see some trees which are struggling
Uh-huh.
because there is this creeper which has climbed onto it and it's weighing it down. So we go
Yeah,
and cut those creepers, right? While we are walking, it doesn't take too much. We can do
yeah.
with our bare hands. We can remove those creepers and the plant stands up straight and it's able to grow further. But if we
Beautiful.
didn't do that, the tree would die. And
Uh-huh.
when you have those trees naturally coming up, all of them provide extra oxygen. So it takes care. And there is one more thing, Sandeep, we could do, which we can always talk to our counselors, because in my neighborhood, I've seen this. We have this road called as Morningside Avenue, and
Okay.
it's a straight road going from north to south,
Mhm.
and it connects to the highway. It used to have two lanes on each side,
Yes.
and it used to be trouble free. We used to just zip across, and we don't have subway in our area, and we just have TTC buses. Okay, and these buses are not that frequent. So what these guys did is, the city, what they did is they painted off one of the lanes on each side red, and now it is meant only for buses.
Mm.
Okay, so what
That's
I find now is that we have a lineup of cars,
yeah.
and that red lane is empty because people are obeying
Oh,
law. The red lane is empty because earlier, when we had these two lanes, there are 3 or 4 left turns that come for us in each direction. So
yeah.
when you want a left turn, as you know, in Toronto, when you want a left turn, you stop there, you wait for the traffic to pass. When you get a chance, then you turn left. So
Yes.
what happens is,
We
if
back in the
if
race.
our lane has got a car which wants to go left, we are all backed up
Uh-huh.
because the cars coming from the other side will keep on flowing until
Yeah.
the signal
Picture
comes.
this right
So
now. Yeah.
sometimes in a given signal, if the first car itself is the one that wants to go left, which
Yes.
happens very often, the first or the third car becomes the one that
Uh-huh.
wants to go left, then we don't have another lane in which we can go.
Yeah. What
So
a point.
everybody is backed up. So now we are wasting gas, we are
Yes.
polluting more, and we
Yes.
are reaching places late. Our quality of
Mm.
life has become bad.
Yeah.
But on paper, we are environment friendly because we have marked those 2 lanes for buses, and
Mhm.
bus carries 50 or 60 people at a time. So there you go, we have marked it. But people have to use their sense on where they are going to do this. Earlier, people used to be able to
Yeah.
move around and go. Now, this is because Canadians, we are so law abiding, right? But if it was Mumbai or somewhere else, people will just go into, they don't bother about markings or anything. I mean, they just go wherever they need to go in order to reach wherever they need to reach. So we are forcing people to become like that,
Hmm.
because they will have to go to office, they have to reach in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we need to have
You're a
sensible
genius.
legislations,
Yes.
or else people will start hating environmental measures taken by government if they are not taken sensibly. That was my point.
Yes. And you made a great point about the teachers and finding teachers who are good, who are moral, who are ethical. And if we encourage people to do this path, if they're paid well, we get good people doing that. And I got a friend, he lives in India. We share little quotes here or there from
Yes.
readings. And one thing I remember figuring out was from this fellow, Samuel Francis said, majority of the world operates in cities, and a large portion of the population is ruled by bureaucrats, where it is physically impossible to know everyone. So you have to develop an interpersonal criteria, which created the test taking system. And the test taking system was the easiest way to gauge most people, but it doesn't determine personal qualities. And the problem with these are it doesn't measure things that can't be measured on a test. Things like courage, wisdom, and morality. You can't measure those on a test. So they aren't as valued and they go overcome.
But they
And
have to become universal qualities. They
yeah,
become universal qualities when you have good teachers.
yes. And he goes on to say that what you get is an elite section, which creates a society that is foolish, immoral, and cowardly. He's a
Yeah.
little more grim, but
Yeah,
he
I think
says,
he has a point. Your friend has got a point out there. I'll
uh,
also tell you one more thing. This is true for Canada,
yeah,
and this could be true for rich economies. What is happening in Canada is that we have a low birth rate here, and
yeah,
therefore we are allowing a lot of immigrants to come in. But the immigrants are also going to have low birth rate. And you know why? Because it costs a lot of money to raise a child in Canada.
nice.
And when both parents work, childcare is mighty expensive.
It is.
So, given those things, we are going to perennially have lower birth rate, and we
Mhm.
are going to constantly import immigrants and
Yeah,
take their golden years, and we are going to rob from developing countries which invest in their citizens. Like I was educated by the government of India, which
yes,
paid for my education,
yeah,
right? They subsidized my education heavily. You won't believe how inexpensive it was for me to do my MBA,
yeah,
right from kindergarten onwards up to.
uh-huh,
And I served my country for 13 years, and then I left my country because I didn't have good quality of life. My career aspirations could not be fulfilled.
uh-huh.
So I came out. So essentially, Canada got the benefit of everything that
Oh, wow.
India invested in. And
Yeah,
right now, when we got 1 million immigrants into Canada last year, we
uh,
stole 1 million immigrants from developing countries,
smart
which
people too.
needed them desperately, but
Hmm.
they are no longer there because they couldn't afford to give them the career aspirations that they wanted, the kind of salary and quality of life they wanted. So now they have come here. And now what are we going to give them here? We have accommodation shortage. Housing is very expensive.
Yes.
And young couples who immigrate to Canada and settle down here, I bet you most of them would not be able to afford to have children
Oh,
because one of them will have to stop working to take care of the child, or they'll have to get their parents to come here and be babysitters.
yes.
Okay. So this is the dynamics that they are going to work, and they are going to find it difficult to buy a first home. So you're going to be renting for a longer period of time. So
Mhm.
the conditions are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And just imagine our original topic, environmental issues.
Mm.
So if the sea level rises, which is going to happen because the glaciers are melting. So as the
Yes.
sea level rises, coastal areas are going to shrink. They're
Okay.
going to go inward,
Oh,
and smaller islands are going to disappear,
like
and
Maldives.
island countries are going to become smaller, and the climate frequency or ferociousness of the climate events is going to increase, as a result of which you're going to have many people migrating, not because of quality of life issues, but to be in a more safe place where they can live without climate catastrophes. And parts of the world which have those kind of nice environment at that time are going to be overcrowded. So
Mm.
nobody is going to have a good quality of life in the future unless we fix these problems. That's the
Yeah.
urgency, and nobody is feeling the urgency.
Yeah. Jeez. Grim situation. But do you think there's hope?
There is hope. We are talking about it. This is
Yeah.
hope, right?
So you're
And
hopeful because
yeah, I'm
I think
hopeful,
that
and
I'm hopeful.
I think there's a whole lot of people. I mean, if I look at the world, right, overall, I'm just doing a caricature of this. I look at the world like a engine with a lot of compartments, right?
Uh-huh.
And the engine driver is the one who is taking us forward. These are the scientists, and these are the brilliant minds, right? The Nobel Prize winners and all, who keep on pushing the frontiers of science, coming up with new technologies and new innovations, discovering and pushing mankind forward. Then there is the other compartment where it's where the canteen is, where people go to eat. That's where the cooks are all cooking stuff and
Yeah.
getting things ready for you to eat and all that stuff.
This
So
analogy.
that is more or less like the entrepreneurs and the people who create the infrastructure in which we can consume stuff and have a good life.
Yes.
And the rest of that are all passengers. And many of them are not even aware of what the others are contributing. And to make them all aware of how precarious this engine is, which is pulling everybody, and how precarious the canteen section is, which is cooking food for them. This includes teachers, this includes scientists, entrepreneurs, all those people, right? So the teachers have to educate them. And in order for the teachers have to educate them and all, well, the leaders have to make sure that the teachers are given good status in society, good salary, motivation, so that they can put their heart and soul into it and feel a sense of accomplishment. And when that happens, then just imagine more and more compartments becoming engines and more compartments becoming canteens. Then the whole train will be an enriched train instead of a long series of compartments depending on just one engine and one canteen. Right? That's the way I look at it.
I like that analogy. And then the train, it's not just the train, almost is the society where every boxcar of the train has a purpose.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the closest I can say. And what is to stop the engine driver to just step out and cut the rest of the compartments and just keep going forward? No need for the riffraff.
A moral duty to.
I guess Elon Musk is trying to do that. Let's go to Mars and colonize that. And I think someone else said that if we can colonize Mars and make it like Earth, then we are already on Earth. We should make Earth more Earth-like and salvage the Earth, which should be possible for us.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good point.
Great point, actually.
Yeah, I think we spoke a lot, Sandeep. I think
this was a cool
we got carried
conversation.
away.
I enjoyed it. We hit a whole variety of topics. We hit started talking about the biggest concern for the youth, which related to environment and climate change and the future. And we also touched on why just throwing money at the issue is not always ideal because of the way the system's made up, and government, their role in this, and what we could do, and why it matters to be a good person and having good teachers and good guides and good coaches to grow and do a good part in the society. I say good a lot.
Yeah. And it's difficult for us to be good investors, mainly because, everybody wants to have profits. Nobody wants to lose profits. So we'll see. Each one of us has to face the moral test and pass it. So I guess that kind of brings me to the close of
Any
my
closing
part.
thoughts?
Yeah. It was a nice conversation with you, Sandeep. Thanks for that question. I think you guys have a challenging future ahead. And I'm almost 60, so maybe I have another 30, 35. I don't see the world going too bad in that time. It's going to become very difficult, but not too bad. But for younger generation, people younger than you, the people who are 18 now, they are going to have a difficult time. Yeah, in my opinion, unless we make course corrections.
But the only direction we can go is forward, and we have to try to do our best to go forward.
Yes.
So let's do our best, everyone.
Yeah. So thanks, Sandeep. With that note, I think we can end the session today, and we'll talk again next weekend, Sandeep. I look forward to the talks with you.
Yes. I really enjoy these. I like these off-topic conversations. Hopefully our ShareTreck. I
hope our audience enjoys the fact that we tape this for them, and I use the word tape, so that shows my age. We record these for you, and we put it on our channel. So I hope you like this. Please put your comments. What do you think is the biggest risk? Please answer Sandeep in the comment, and also give your solutions along with it. What do you think will be the solution? Whether you're in the US or Canada or UK or Ireland or in the Middle East, wherever you are.
Or whatever age group you might belong to.
Exactly. Please participate. This is the most important question of our generation.
Guide the youth.
Take care, guys. We'll catch up with you again later.
Thank you, everybody.